Validation. This is one universal quality that we all desire, be it in our professional and our personal relationships. It is a fundamental human need to feel seen, heard, and valued. This creates the experience of validation. We often look outside of ourselves for validation, and this puts us in a pretty tricky cycle that usually doesn't produce good outcomes for us, since we tend to start putting a desperate need of the approval of others and what they think of us over the approval of our own selves. Now, this might lead to an experience of eventually not even knowing ourselves or who we are anymore, because we have spent so much of our time trying to please others in pursuit of validation. We see this all the time in the professional setting, whether you are trying to win over the crowd, impress your boss, get the approval of colleagues, or get that next promotion. In our personal relationships, it is often found in our efforts to fulfill the roles of a family dynamic, obtain intimate partnerships, or the pursuit of social acceptance. As human beings, we are so programmed for validation that we don't even recognize how strongly we're subconsciously driven to obtain it. And strangely, one of the most ironic things is that we seek validation so deeply outside of ourselves that we actually use its counterpart, invalidation, within ourselves to get it. Think for a moment the times you've really wanted to get the approval of someone or reach a new goal. Often, you motivate yourself through that negative messaging to get it. You better nail this, don't mess this one up like the last time, you've got to get this, and so on. What happens with this process is that even when we do actually get the external validation, we have done so much internal invalidating to get it that it actually makes it difficult to receive and actually believe it once we do get the thing, the goal. Most of us, especially those of us who have been taught to drive for success and achieve big results, we've learned how to motivate ourselves through invalidation. We run scripts like, I've got to do better. I need to be achieving this. I should be doing that. I have to push harder. What's wrong with you? Pull it together. And all the other things that we say to ourselves. And the idea here being that the harder that we come down on ourselves, seemingly, the more motivation we have to succeed and push ourselves towards our goal. It's as if we're running from the lack that we perceive and we're putting on our own selves. However, this invalidation is a tricky motivator. It may work for some time, maybe even decades, and then one day, it doesn't. Even once we've arrived at our set goals, the promotion, the title, the relationship, that nagging voice of invalidation continues. It is almost as if it's running the show rather than you running the show. It is deciding what's enough and when you can let up. And here's the thing, it never lets up, because it's become your biggest bully that won't quit. And it actually keeps you from receiving the very validation that you seek. So instead, another healthier way to think about motivating yourself is by aligning your internal desires with your external goals. When these two come into alignment, you create a much deeper inner sense of validation, and this then propels you forward. It could be even a simple act of changing the way you motivate yourself with the words that you speak to yourself. For instance, rather than saying to yourself right before you're going into a presentation or a pitch, don't blow this like you always do, say something like, you've got this, you can do this. Get in your own zone of validation rather than invalidation. Another thing to do is think about a particular quality you would like to create externally or have more of in your life or even in your professional world. And do the things within yourself to create more of that quality within yourself. This small reframe is actually going to set you up for success and motivates you towards something you want rather than running you from something you don't want. It is the old proverbial, the carrot or the stick. Look for small ways to validate yourself internally. This is such a foreign concept to so many of us. We are conditioned to look for what is wrong rather than what is right. And we naturally increase the focus on the negative while sometimes altogether ignoring any positive. And we have been so conditioned to look for approval outside of ourselves, be it in a parent, a teacher, a spouse, boss, peers. The idea of internal validation is not something that is talked about, it's not something that's taught about, and it's hard to find examples of people who do it well. In fact, to some of you, this concept of inner validation could sound totally unrealistic, soft, like total self-help crap. In a way, it totally is self-help. Because here's the deal. You motivating yourself through self-destruction rather than self-help has an expiration date. So you better figure out another way to move you towards your goals. One that sustains and motivates you in a far more healthier, productive, positive manner. One that actually supports you and builds you up rather than tears you down. Like developing any new muscle, we need to be intentional. Start looking for ways to acknowledge the things you do well. Even if you have to make a commitment to yourself to writing down 3 things that you did well that day. Just start training yourself to be motivated through more validation rather than the self-criticism that takes on the form of this internal invalidation. Now, this is just one way to start to develop that muscle of self-validation rather than invalidation. And in the next video, I'm going to begin to talk about how we can apply this method when leading your teams. Stay tuned to my channel for more short sprints around executive voice and presence, confidence, leadership, optimal mindset, and a whole slew of other topics. I'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to leave a comment or a question, and be sure to like this video and click the subscribe button to be notified when there are new videos for you to watch. Make it a good week.